Guys, yes, it is still utter chaos and confusion down here in the basement. I'm really torn with what free time I have between cleaning up, straightening up, setting up a real workshop, trying to work on projects in the middle of all this mess, or just enjoy life and have some fun. Well, one thing I have been doing is keeping an eye on eBay now and then to pick up some odds and ends. I'm really set with my collection. I do occasionally buy something, as you've seen, like they're predicted on there, because I find deals too good to pass up, but I've got plenty to work on. But there are some bits of test equipment and tools that I wouldn't mind having, so over the past couple years I have picked up some stuff, and I thought I'd take a break and show them to you. So one thing is this guy, which is a tube pin straightener. This is one of the newer ones, so new it's got support for Compactron and new Vistors. So what you do is you'd screw this down to your workbench, or I even saw one screwed to the side of a tube caddy, and if you get a tube with bent pins, you work it down into these holes and it'll straighten the pins out. I've seen ones made out of metal, I think aluminum usually, but this one is some type of hard plastic. Handy thing to have when you've got bent pins. Otherwise you can use long nose pliers, but certainly makes the job a bit easier. Alright, what next? Oh, I'll dig into this guy. Alright, let's see what's in this bag. So, one thing I have trouble doing sometimes is seeing the front of the TV while I'm adjusting controls in the back. Well, one thing you can get is a tripod with a mirror on it, so you can be completely behind the set and see the screen. Especially works nice for big consoles, but for smaller sets, like a 10-inch tabletop, you can get by with one of these. It's a mirror. You strap it to your hand. You put that in front of the set while you're behind the set, and you can see the screen, at least, you know, to some extent. I have not actually tried using this to see how well it works, but I thought it was a kind of fun thing to have, and I like the graphics on the back. I suspect they may have just given these away. Sylvania quality picture tubes and receiving tubes. So, next TV I work on, that's a smaller set. I'll give this a try and see how useful it actually is in practice. And along the same vein is this guy. I had seen these a number of times on eBay, and I actually thought these were stands for a mirror, and the mirror had just broken off, was missing. But this one came with the original box, so now I know exactly what it is. It is a picture tube neck rest. General Electric. Holds tube in viewing position while repairing chassis. So, now in some sets the picture tube is attached to the cabinet, so you wouldn't use this for that, or some it's bolted to the chassis, you wouldn't use it for that, but there are some situations where the picture tube is not supported too well, like on the RCA 630TS. It is kind of held in place by clips on the front of the set, and when you've got it out, it's loose. Or with some of the 7-inch sets, like the Motorola sets, the neck clamps to the top of the cabinet, and while you're working on the workbench, it just kind of wobbles around, and I would take rags, socks, whatever, and stuff it underneath to kind of stabilize the picture tube while working on them. But with this, I wouldn't need to do that. In fact, I just happen to have a 10-inch picture tube here, so clear a little room. Let's see how this might work in practice. Say you've got your set with your 10-inch picture tube, so, and there you go, and I presume this adjusts the height position right there. But that's basically what it does. So, another nifty thing to have. Oh yeah, it came with these too. I forgot about that. These two wedges. If I had to guess, I think you can put them on either side of the front of the picture tube so it doesn't roll around left, right. I don't think I mentioned that. I did not get any instructions. I'm amazed these didn't get lost over the years. I don't think they're meant to wedge in up here, but I suppose it's a possibility. No, I really think that these were meant to go underneath the front of the picture tube so it can't roll around. So, I think for at least some sets, this will come in handy. And now for some actual test equipment. First up, this guy, which is known as a CRT Testivator. And I will admit, I bought this just because of the name. Very silly name. I'd seen these a few times on eBay. One came up at a reasonable price, so I picked it up. It's a CRT tester. I don't have the instructions. I don't know exactly how it works, but just going by what I can see, it's got to be pretty cheap and not all that accurate. There's no meter, there's no eye tube. All we've got are two bulbs, a knob, and a couple switches. Emission, leakage, emission cathode grid A1 and KH. That's all I know. I would guess this can somehow test for shorts and emission. I'm guessing leakage is equivalent to a shorts test. And it's got the standard pin socket that all the early magnetic deflection picture tubes use, like the 10BP4, 12LP4, and so on. Power cord would plug in up top. Don't have one. That's all I know. I'm guessing you'd plug this in, hook this up to your CRT. This says off, but it doesn't click or anything, so I don't know if this thing actually has a power switch of any sort on it. And then I'm thinking for like emissions test, you'd put it into the emission position, and you'd rotate this, and when the light lights up, you check the reading on the dial, like it's a bridge circuit of some sort. And similar when you're doing leakage. And maybe this checks a cathode heater short, and this is a cathode grid short. Not entirely sure, but I'm sure I could look online, maybe find a schematic or a manual. But again, I didn't really buy this to accurately test picture tubes. I bought it just because it looks interesting. And the same applies to this. A kine test, short for kinescope, aka a picture tube. Made by Vidair, I think. Baldwin, New York. Dynamic signal and voltage tester for TV picture tubes. Eliminate guesswork, save time and labor, minimize handling of picture tube, simple to operate. The last statement is certainly true. I don't know about the rest of it. I've got some instructions on the back. It says it will simultaneously check the filament voltage, first anode voltage, bias voltage, a video signal at the picture tube socket without removal from cabinet. So, what the heck is in here that can do all that? Well, let's take a look. That's it. It is a little baby 6AF6 eye tube. And presumably some electronics in here. And socket. So you leave everything in the set, and you disconnect the picture tube and plug what would normally go into the picture tube into this. So all the power for this, like the filament voltage for the eye tube, will come from the TV set, which would need to be turned on for this to work. So certainly you can check the filament of the picture tube, because if the eye tube lights up, you've got filament voltage. And presumably, if the other voltages are in the typical range for a typical picture tube, the eye tube will do its thing. So it's either if the tuning eye filament lights, you know you've got good filament. If the target light's green, there is voltage at the first anode. Adjust the brightness control, and the eye should open and close as you adjust the brightness. And similarly, when you adjust the contrast, it also affects how the eye appears. So, I'd also seen these on eBay for a while. This is one of the nicer looking ones I'd seen, coming with the original packaging, so I picked that up. Next time I'm working on a set with this type of picture tube, sure, let's give this a try. I don't know if this was ever used. The pins look awfully clean, as does the eye tube. So it may have seen very little, if no use, in the field. Okay, now on to some bigger stuff. Now, I may have shown this in the past, I don't recall. What this is a test picture tube, which you've seen me use many times, but it comes in its own little traveling case, and it has its own deflection yoke. Especially handy for mid-late 50s sets, bigger console sets where the picture tube was mounted to the cabinet. I'll be working on one coming up soon. So you don't want to haul that big 20-something inch picture tube up under your workbench and have it flopping around while you're working on a chassis. Instead, you leave that in the cabinet and you use this. So this has all kinds of extension leads, alligator clips. So this plugs into the set. You can see it's got a pretty long cable. Or this plugs in where the picture tube connects on the set. And then these are your yoke connectors, horizontal and vertical. And then this is for your high voltage. Not the thickest insulation, but supposedly it's good up to 10,000 plus volts. And there's some instructions in the lid, kind of glued in there. And looks like there's a card floating around here. Let's see what that says. Polaris Engineering Corporation television picture tube warranty. I don't think this came with this device. I think this may have been from the shop where this was being used or something like that. I've never heard of this company. I'm thinking maybe they rebuilt picture tubes or service TVs or something. I'm not entirely sure. But this was made by IH Manufacturing Corporation, or company. I think there's also a version, an earlier version, that has a round 5AXP4 in it, but this has an 8XP4. Alright, so that's very cool. Very useful thing to have, but there's more. What I didn't realize until quite recently is that there is something missing from mine, or maybe it was an optional accessory and mine just didn't come with it. But where this empty space is right up here, there can be something. So, I got a tip on one of the forums about one of these for sale on eBay, and when I first saw it, I thought, I've got one of those, and mine looks to be in better shape, so thanks for the link, but I'll pass. Then I took a closer look and realized what it had. So, here is the other one. And as you can see from the outside, it's pretty miserable. Tolex is coming off, beat up, worn out, filthy. Whole front's loose. I didn't even notice that till now. But inside, we've got this. So what is in the lid? It's a speaker. Actually, I think it's two speakers. One permanent magnet for direct connection, and the other has an output transformer. A switch here for direct versus transformer. Probably needs some cleaning, a little stiff. So, on many projects, I'm sure you guys have seen me working with either the original speaker for a set taken out of the cabinet, flopping around on the workbench, or a beat up old test speaker I've got that I hook up with alligator clips. Well, no more. At least not when I'm working on TVs with this device. I can take the little clips, and this one has a pretty extensive set of clips as well, and adapters for other CRT types, which is nice. But these are for the speaker. So the two prongs go into the device here, and then it's got little insulated alligator clips on the other end to clip into the set. So, very cool. Thank you for the tip. It's really falling apart even inside the cabinet. We got some loose wood. So what I'm thinking I'll do is I'll transplant this to my other one. Some of the test leads as well. This has seen better days. So thank you very much for that tip. This will come in very, very handy, no doubt. And finally, two devices that do the same thing from two different manufacturers. First up, a Tektronix 604. What this is an XY monitor. Now, if you've watched my past videos, you've probably seen me do alignments before. And when I do them, I use my HP oscilloscope in XY mode. I gotta get out my scope, I've got to hook up cables to the sweep generator and set the mode and adjust the controls, and it takes a while. And if I want to go back to use it as an oscilloscope, I gotta get the probes back out, disconnect the cables, change it to oscilloscope mode, and so on. That gets old if you do a lot of alignments. That's where this comes in. This can be permanently attached to the sweep generator, and then you can use your oscilloscope for just an oscilloscope. So what this does is, well, on the back there is a connection for X and Y, and I believe intensity or Z-axis. And most sweep generators, certainly modern ones, have an X and Y output, so you just hook those directly to this. And, well, you get a dot without anything hooked up. So that little, there we go. Controls are probably a little crusty. Don't really want to burn it, but I have not done any type of cleaning or calibration on this. All I know is I can get a dot and I can move it with the controls, but it's a little flaky. But that is what this does. So I will be, I think I already did find the service manual and downloaded it online, but I have not popped the covers off or done any type of calibration or cleaning or anything. So I got this one first, but what I really wanted was the next one I'm going to show you. I couldn't resist the opportunity to take a look inside the 604 in a little more detail. Here's a look at the controls on the back. See X and Y and Z inputs. So you got trace rotation, and you can do some remote programming. I'll never use that stuff. Behind here, it's sealed. I'm guessing there's maybe some power supply transistors or something attached to that. Well, I had to void the warranty by poking a screwdriver through here to get the covers off, so this has not been open in quite a while, I suspect. And there she is. So even though all this does is X and Y deflection, so basically it's two accurate DC differential amplifiers, there's quite a few components in here. Hopefully all still good, because I suspect they're going to be house numbered and whatnot. But man, that's complicated for not doing a whole lot. Those tubular things with the stripes, those I believe are ceramic capacitors. Let's get some trimmer caps, diodes on a whole mess of transistors. And a few trimmer pots. So that might be the X and Y and Z amplifiers. The Z amplifiers for intensity modulation. And I guess that the other side is going to be the power supply. And controls. Yeah, it's power supply. Power transformer, some filter caps. And high voltage supply under the wraps. So, interesting. What I really wanted to do was see if I could clean these pots, because they seem to be really dirty. Unfortunately, I'm kind of sealed. I mean, I guess I could take those screws off the back and get some cleaner in there. I think I should do a little research on how to clean this type of pot before I do that, though. I don't want to take those off and have the innards come flopping out. And finally, here is the setup I've wanted to get ever since I found out about it, which is the Wavetech 1901 paired up with a Wavetech sleep generator. They call it a display oscilloscope, but basically it's an XY monitor, just like the Tektronix. Why do I like it so much? Well, it's got a nice big screen, 13-inch, and it's Wavetech, and the primary sleep generators I use are also Wavetech, and I know they were designed to play nice together. It's also fairly recent, about the same vintage as this guy, maybe a little bit older. I just set it up for the first time. I had powered it up when I first got it to make sure that I could get a dot on the screen, but now I've got it actually paired up with a sleep generator, and it seems to be working. I don't doubt I need to calibrate it and go through it, make sure everything is up to snuff. And that's another thing I like about Wavetech is all the manuals are readily available, and they used off-the-shelf components, no proprietary unmarked parts like Tektronix and Hewlett-Packard would use. So I should, if there's anything issue with this, I should be able to get parts no problem, and calibration procedure, schematics, everything are in this manual I downloaded offline. And dim the lights a little so we can see this better. Alright, so what are we looking at here? Well, this has got an XY input right on the front that go to the vertical and horizontal output on the sleep generator. And then we've got controls. So the horizontal is on the right side, vertical on the left side. We've got position, up, down, left, right. We've got gain. That's the horizontal gain. And here's vertical gain. And we've got intensity. There are some controls on the back for an external marker input and intensity modulation, but with this setup I don't really need those. So normally what you do is the RF out on this would go to your radio, TV, whatever you're aligning. The output of whatever you're aligning would go into this DMOD input, and you got the outputs go into your device. So what's so great about this? Well, aside from being nice and big, it should be quite linear if I go through the calculation procedure, and if I get everything set up right, we get these squiggles to go lining up with their the grid lines on the screen. What these markers are, in this case, is I've got markers, I got them all turned on. So this has internal marker generators for 1 megahertz, 10 megahertz, 100 megahertz. So each one of these is 1 megahertz apart. So let's just pretend that this is, say, 20 megahertz. That would be 21, 22, 23. So if I was to adjust the gain and the centering and all that, it makes it quite easy to read. I can also adjust the size of the markers on the sleep generator itself. You can make them kind of blobbier like that, make them narrower, and you can change the size. Right now I've just got the 10 on, and so there's what a 10 looks like. And oops, wrong button. Now I've got them all on. So the way that they design the sleep generators, the 10 megahertz markers are a little bit taller than the 1 megahertz markers. So I've just about got it set up right now so that all the 1 megahertz are lined up. So once I go through the calibration procedure, I can get this set up on an area in my workshop and just leave it set up all the time. It's dedicated setup just for doing alignments. So next project, you will no doubt see this more and see how it actually works in practice. But for now, that is going to be it. Hope you enjoyed this look at some new test equipment.